I would, if I were you, I would take a look at a couple different things. Um, so like right now you have JavaScript, which you are learning. Let's zoom this in. You have JavaScript that you're learning, which is really good. That's like a really big foundation. And then obviously like HTML and CSS, I won't really put those here. Those are obviously very beneficial to know and understand in order to even really do much with JavaScript, as far as like developing web applications. But JavaScript is like this foundation. On top of that, I would also then, I would focus on learning TypeScript, which TypeScript will look and feel exactly like JavaScript, like to a T. However, what it does is it introduces something called typing. Typing is found everywhere. It's found. I mean, with Python, I think they do. I think they're a strongly typed language, so you probably know that. So basically, JavaScript plus typing equals TypeScript. And so TypeScript is pretty much the de facto standard when it comes to writing JavaScript these days. I don't really know of many people who write only JavaScript. I think you'll find much less. Both, yeah. Anyways, go the TypeScript route. On top of that, I would also focus on learning. I mean, you might already know this, and I took a peek and I didn't see a GitHub profile for you, but I would also learn like Git stuff. So Git stuff is basically version, like it's a version control manager, and it also is the de facto standard. That's why GitHub is the kind of giant monolith that it is. And so I would definitely learn Git in order to store all your files, be able to do branching, do like all sorts of different things. And it's kind of hard by yourself without being in a team environment to learn something like that. So if you're not using this already where you are, this will be a bit challenging to learn, but I would definitely still try and spend time kind of replicating what it would be like to sit on a team. So having different branches, pushing and pulling in a different branch into a branch that you currently have, doing things like rebasing, migrating, stuff like that. You're trying to look at, being able to understand what commits are and how to kind of manipulate them a little bit. So Git would be really helpful because pretty much anywhere that you go, you're going to have to use that, specifically with GitHub. I don't know many people that use something else besides GitHub, even though there are other options out there. Alongside of that, because that's kind of off to the side, like version control land, I would also begin the process of learning basically how to interact with APIs. There's two different types that are kind of like the way people handle APIs right now, which once again, you might know some of the stuff writing Python, but there's REST APIs. And then there's also kind of a new popular, I don't know if you call it tool, framework, whatever you call it, which is GraphQL. And so I would definitely learn GraphQL. You probably could show up to opportunities not knowing GraphQL, and people are like, "Oh, that's fine, you can learn it." But already having touched it and having a rudimentary understanding of it, and maybe being able to say like, "Yeah, I've practiced and built a couple things with it," would be helpful. It would give you probably a leg up there. So I think GraphQL would be really helpful. There's specifically a popular tool called Apollo GraphQL, which is like a framework inside of GraphQL that I use at my current role that I think is fairly popular in the world of GraphQL. But you don't need Apollo; you can just use straight up GraphQL. I would also take a look at. I would also take a look at like. Trying to think of to explain how this would all fit in, but basically Node.js, which you might be familiar with, might not be familiar with, and then this is a good one, and then also I would definitely look at basically React. There's several different frameworks that you can go right now. Like there's Vite, there's Next.js, there's what are some other? There's a couple other popular ones. Gatsby. I wouldn't worry about those too much because once you know React, some of these frameworks that React can kind of fit into can be kind of opinionated and a little finicky. I don't super love them, to be honest. But there's specifically something called Create React app, which is basically just a way to kind of get up and running with React really quickly. It's basically like one command will get you rolling into a React environment really fast. Like it'll just spin up, things like Babel and Webpack and some configurations for you that just let you like start with a good foundation to then start, creating some files and writing some JavaScript, TypeScript inside of React. And you can actually set it up with TypeScript specifically. So I would definitely go that route there. And then, so that's also a super helpful tool in this world of kind of front end. I would also, gosh, there's a lot of things. I would also, like look at testing. So as you, let's put it, we'll put it here. I would look at Jest for testing. Testing is a whole like big wide world that you don't have to really dive too deep into right now. But I would advocate for at least knowing like 20%, 10%, whatever, of how to actually write tests alongside of your code, because any place kind of worth their snuff is going to require you to kind of know how to and write good testing and understand good testing principles alongside of the code that you're writing. And so for at least for, where I'm working, I'm working kind of two different spots. I do contract work on the side as well as a 9-to-5. And in both places, every time that you write some sort of, like you have a ticket, you write some sort of like a body of code, it's required that you sit down, think through how to test that code, and then also produce tests for that code. So this is kind of an industry standard way of writing code. And so in the front end world, Jest is pretty much like also the de facto standard of how to write tests. So I would spend time learning that as well too. There's another piece that I was going to mention here. And then there's CSS, right? So understanding kind of basic, like how to, open or create a CSS file, start, popping in there, dot body and, the brackets and writing out, stuff like that. That's really helpful because it's good to know, how CSS works on kind of a base level. But most of the times people these days like to use, something, not on top of CSS, but kind of like use some sort of a tooling or framework for CSS. And a really popular one right now that people are liking is Tailwind. And so I would also, running out of space here. We'll do this. We'll put this here. Put this here. This is technically kind of the environment that you run JavaScript in. So we'll do that. This is kind of your foundation. And this is off to the side by itself. Okay. That's for testing. This is for API calls. And then, like I said, there's also Tailwind. So we'll put Tailwind here. I apologize. This is getting way more in the weeds than I had intended, but I think this is all helpful for you to take a look at. So Tailwind is also really helpful. It's basically an ability to using classes. So like class names that you'd put into like an HTML element or write into your JavaScript, TypeScript sort of components that you're building out. It's a way to basically do styling. So Tailwind is this big this big library of different class names that have CSS styling attached to them. And so you can kind of pop in different class names on top of the JavaScript that you're writing in order to style things. And it's a very popular thing right now. And you'll find mixed thoughts about whether it's a good thing or not, But either way, it's kind of, I feel like it's taken the industry by storm. And yeah, so I would definitely take a look this direction when it comes to like not just like, hey, go learn JavaScript, but really all these additional things along the way are just going to be really helpful. Once again, you don't have to become a master in anything. If anything, I would say like focus on JavaScript, TypeScript, and then React, like these three. And then these other things, I would just kind of try and sprinkle into what you're doing a little bit, just so you can show up with some sort of code written around those things, with some basic understanding of what they are and how they function and how you would try and pull them into what you're doing. Another thing that I would, and maybe the last thing here that I would say, that's I don't know about job ready. Like, I don't know if the industry yet is at a place where it's going to say that this is like a requirement. But another thing that I would say is I would utilize UI, or wow, not UI, goodness, AI, and I would utilize it like crazy if I were you. I would even, consider purchasing a ChatGPT, V4 subscription, but obviously that's entirely up to you. I use AI every single day. Not developing in AI, like there's kind of a difference. Like you can actually pull AI into your solution that you're building on a programming level. So you can have, your code that you're writing go out and talk to AI and come back with something to then kind of build with. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in your workflow as someone who is coding, using AI to help you craft solutions and to help you solve problems. So for instance, I use AI on a daily basis as I hit different how would I solve this sort of a thing? I will take those moments, I will take them to ChatGPT, and I will begin asking questions and dialoguing with it. I basically treat AI like a more senior developer than me, who is always at my beck and call. And so I will just treat it like a human being. And I mean, I don't actually think they're humans, but like I'll pretend like I'm sitting down with a human and just begin dialoguing with it in conversation. And I'll throw code snippets in there at it and ask it questions about it. As it gives me responses, I'll ask it about what it wrote and why, because AI will speed up your learning curve like crazy. And so you obviously have to be careful not to become kind of like a copy paste programmer who doesn't actually really know what you're outputting. So it's important to try and understand the solution you're building. But at the same time, it's really helpful to be able to lean on AI to help you solve problems and write solutions, and fill in kind of knowledge gaps that you have around different things. So honestly, like if I were you, I would take all these things and I would say, what are the differences between JavaScript and TypeScript? Like I would throw that into ChatGPT and see what it spits back, and then I would start asking questions with it. I would say, hey, what's a good example of how I would, I'd copy maybe like if you once you get into React, like a React component that you've built, I would copy and paste that into AI and then ask it the question, how would I write a jest test for this file that I just built? And then it would kind of spit something out for you. You could kind of look at it, maybe pull it into what you're doing, and then start asking questions about why it wrote it the way it did. So stuff like that. Like I would really heavily lean on AI in order to try and accomplish both your learning and then also the solutions that you're building, because it's very, very helpful. Yeah. So I think if you came to the table, even as someone with, not a whole lot of years in the industry, but you came having spent time touching, learning, and then building on some level with this stuff, I think you would, in my opinion, you would stand out as someone who's really trying to kind of make waves in the industry. So yeah, so like I said, this is really in the weeds. I apologize. This was more than a 5-minute video, which I was just planning on making a 5-minute video, but hopefully this is helpful and not overwhelming. Good luck.